Howdy. Howdy, everyone. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Been trying to get this one going for like 3 days in a row and just haven't been able to get the stars to align with family and time and space and blah, 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 blah. But here we are, coalescing on a screen near you. Hope everybody's doing well. Just kind of finalizing my layout here as far as material and discussions and blah, 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 all that good stuff. Um, yeah. As you can tell by the thumbnail and the title, we're going to talk a little bit about caves today. We're going to start off this episode talking about this specific article, Clues to Our Past, Remnants of the Deluge. This is an article from 1894. And we're going to kind of just use this as a jumping off point to talk about how caves not only could be clues to our past, but our present and our future. And these kind of collective ideas of underground civilizations. And if you haven't had a chance to watch my chat um, with Black Sheep researcher, we talk a little bit about this. He did a video recently, um, kind of exploring the idea: do we live in a cave? The world we inhabit right now, this closed environment. Is this actually a cave? Is it caves within caves, domes within domes? Fantastic video. We get into it a little bit more than I'm going to get into it here today. Um, but yeah, caves. What lies beneath? Kind of the the most common, I suppose, thread for my channel, right? Um, Discussing our buried past, and that we stand on the shoulders of giants, and um, what kind of inspired this um is this show here. Let me go ahead and present before we get too far in here. I just want to welcome everybody. Um, Julie Sunshine, Jason Gray, Jason Marshall, another Robert. Good to see you, Robert. Thanks for being here. Um, mm, Another Sob, 13th Monkey, Mike. Wavy Wave, LGP, sorry. Stephen Brahman, Leighton Lexicon. Leighton, good to see you again. Sherry, yay. Sherry, thank you for being here. Glad I have at least one moderator here. Sherry, you do a great job. I appreciate you very much. Okay, so kind of a fun roundabout way for any shout out any parents in the chat here. We're going to talk about this movie, Crudes, a little bit just to kind of start it off. Kind of a favorite movie in my house, and the concept is the movie follows a family called the Crudes. They're quote unquote cavemen, living in a prehistoric age with megafauna, giants, all kinds of weird animal hybrids, giant lizards, giant mammals, giant, you name it, right? And what kind of gets them moving from their previous um, lifestyle is a happenstance run-in with one of the main characters here, and he's he introduces fire, so he's kind of your Prometheus character um, to this family. They have no fire, no anything. They live in a cave. They're scared of everything. And along with his introduction of fire comes the story of cataclysm and the coming cataclysm. And yeah, so I'm just kind of sharing what led me to. I was watching this movie with my children. which it keeps showing me the French version, but it doesn't really matter. But um, I could do a whole breakdown on this movie because there's a lot of quite fantastic overlays with the material I've shared from a historical standpoint and a geological and anthropological standpoint. The overlays with this movie, like many movies, half truths and so on. But yeah, just kind of using that as a transition into this article here. Um, who else we got here? Brett Z, thanks for being here. Roman Ronan from one Oregonian to the next. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being here. So glad to hear from you, Ben. Your vids help keep my mind in a better place when I'm struggling in life. Oh, well, thank you. I'm glad they provide some level of enjoyment for anybody in any particular place. Let's see if I can make this. The way that the StreamYard shares screen size is incredibly frustrating. So it's like based on my image size. So I just want to make sure I can see you guys and that you're getting the maximum. Okay. So like I was saying, talking about the idea of cavemen and this, like I've mentioned chronology and the skewed aspect of chronology and how we've been fed these kind of masked um, misinterpretations of geological layers and how they represent different time frames in human history and how these are big misconceptions. And even to the simplest idea of what it is to be human and kind of the cliche idea of spiritual beings, creatures with amnesia, and that seems to be incredibly relevant. And digging down into the dirt is the best way from a again a past record standpoint to kind of come to some terms with what and where we come from as human beings, and perhaps get a better idea of what life was like here in this realm, you know, 1, 2, 3 generations, let alone 1, 2, 3 epochs ago, and what is an epoch even anyway? And this idea again of the Stone Age and Iron Age and all this stuff has really been uh, kind of blown out of the water by just reading a few of these articles, let alone the kind of hundreds I've shared over my short time here on YouTube. But yeah, let's just get into the material here. I want to try and see if I can make this full page. Hmm. Pretty annoying that I can't just do that, but it doesn't matter. Let's just get into the meat and potatoes here. We're going to hop through. Um, I'm going to use this again, as I mentioned, to talk about some other ideas, what some of these older cultures, their creation stories, and how several of them, especially here in the Americas, dive into the idea of we came from under up, we came from below Earth to the surface, and using that as a kind of an explanation to why some of these cultures look to burying the dead underground. Kind of this full circle concept of death and rebirth, and just some of the crazy things that we found in caves. um Again, this is from the late 1700s into the early 1900s. The majority of these articles are from the 1800s, but we're going to go ahead and start off here with this one. It's from 1894, Savannah, Georgia, September 11th. Interesting date, huh? And it's called Mastodons in Nebraska. For those of you who have not heard my interviews with Greg from the Higher Side Chats, I've done 3 interviews with him. You can find the first 2 free hours on my YouTube channel, and they're just audio format, so you can just listen to them without watching. We talk about this article here in my first interview with him, and I never really got the time or found the perfect kind of aligning of situations to present the entire article. So I will be doing that here and then kind of giving my opinions on it, connecting it again with the idea of the show I showed earlier, and some of the anomalous America material we've covered already through this. So yeah, here we go. Mastodons in Nebraska. Cave containing prehistoric remains discovered near Chadron. Bones of animals 10 times as big as Jumbo, and of birds that would make the American eagle appear like a swallow in comparison, found in a cave a few miles out of Chadron, evidently the tomb of prehistoric animals who sought therein refuge from the flood. Chadron, Nebraska. Now, for those of you following along, Anomalous America has been put on pause. I'm kind of releasing a 2.0 of my channel here the first week of April. And I plan on Anomalous America episode 20 releasing on Friday, April 5th. And yeah, so I'm kicking off kind of a new Patreon layout for the channel, allowing more people who are interested in going deeper into the well and archive that I have to offer a way of supporting me further, and furthering again the goals that I communicated in my 1 year anniversary episode of allowing myself the ability to um, invest in this venture in more of a part-time to full-time avenue, and that Patreon and people that are interested in that material will be able to support me to do so. um Stay tuned for that. So yeah, Anomalous America episode 20, April 5th. So it's going to be a good one. Yeah, here we go. Chadron, Nebraska, August 13th. Much excitement has been created by the discovery of a great cave about 10 miles from this city in what is called the Badlands. This cave contains prehistoric remains of petrifactions, the most valuable ever found, which go to establish the fact that giant men and animals lived upon this continent before the all deluging flood engulfed it and swept them out of existence. What a powerful first paragraph, huh? I'm just going to go through again and try to do a better job of making sure I'm paying a little more attention to chat and seeing who all's in here. We're at 111, 111. Shout out to my Janice video again with my good friend Black Sheep Researcher. Who is Janice? It's my most recent video. Super proud of it. And we're already got part 2 in the works. So definitely stay tuned for that. But yeah, Mark Gibson, welcome, A1. My nephews like the show. There's lots of info drops. Oh, cool. Well, thanks for being here. Observe natural evolution. What if we are the ones living in inner Earth? Absolutely. I love that perspective. I mean, you always have to ask these questions. And the more outside of the box, no pun intended, you can be, the better off you're going to be, because the more open you can be to whatever information comes your way, um, the more wonderful and beautiful things are going to become. I know that sounds crazy. Um, I too got a little overly invested in kind of the conspiratorial, everyone's out to get you, slave mind uh, concepts about what it is to be human in this world that we dwell in, and I think ultimately that it's just a smaller, that micro to macro, as above, so below, as within, so without. The kind of hermetic representation of life is, to me, with all the years I've been doing this, still resounding to be the most true, and that we are living in a realm that is as close to a representation of ourselves, mentally and physically. If it's a big or strange creature, I love this topic. Oh yeah, it's gonna get weird, so stay tuned. Land of the Lost, Slee Stacks, and Chaka. I'm not sure I understand that one. Great types of shows, especially the genuine like Ben Stream, has also got me through. Oh, cool. Well, hey, if I can provide anything positive or entertaining or anything, then I'm very grateful that you're getting that from here. Roaming Ronan again, thanks for being here. Amy, Boza Novik, highly suggest listening to THC Analogs. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, I've gotten so much great feedback from the THC crowd. And, again, Greg, who is a kind of a, I don't want to say idol, but I look up to him a lot. And, he basically has given me a lot of um, strength and positive reinforcement, and basically laid out this format that I'm going with, and the idea of trying to turn this into, uh, you know, a way of supporting myself and my family, doing what I love, which is presenting this material and kind of uncovering, digging the dirt off our past, so to say. I couldn't do that without you guys. Brett, of course, Duke Nukem. Yeah, if you go to a cave, you'll be eaten by a bear. Yeah, this I plan on this being one of many in the long line of talks when it comes to caves, because again, I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and big cave bears. Man, I got a really good one on cave bears. We'll have to definitely get into that. I'm not sure the baked in sun is true. Okay. Third time for me seeing hearing that today. Um, Hundreds of miles of caves in the oldest mountains on earth, the Ozarks. Thank you so much, Sherry. So yeah, I mean, again, I have probably, I'd say maybe close to 10 videos on caves. So if this is something you like, there's plenty in my archive to keep you going. Lisa, thank you so much for the 1999. I really appreciate that. Lisa, always good to see you. Amy King, hey, good to see you. Thanks for being here, Amy. Mr. Briggs, good to see you again. William Powell's The Women and Children Staying Safe While the Men Were Hunting. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Analog, you the man, best shows. Oh, thanks, man. Yeah. Gosh, I just love, again, being a, almost 10-year long listener to THC, and then, being 3 episodes in is quite an honor, and it's surreal. So doing my best to kind of keep that motivation and keep this all going. But yeah, powerful little introduction here, and back to the article. The discoverer of the cave is Professor W. Don Fritzenholz, who is traveling through the United States in the interest of a European Institute of Zoology. When seen by her correspondent, Herr Fritzenholz was reticent about giving any information relative to his wonderful discovery. It was learned that he consulted some of the legal fraternity of the city in regard to the proper procedure to acquire title to the land upon which the cave was discovered. Now, this is something I've talked about quite a lot, that these Eastern, quote, Eastern interests and influence when it comes to kind of the early archaeological discoveries in the 1800s. That, again, I'm not sure if this gentleman's German, Austrian, kind of that Austro Hungarian conglomerate type, but there was a lot of interest from these types in the 1800s. And when we talk about Eastern influence when it comes to relics and things of that nature, you find a similar tie again to German influence, which is very interesting. So again, he's consulted the legal fraternity, likely the Masons, in the town about acquiring the land where he found this cave. He left for the east last night, presumably on his way to Washington City, where he will make an effort to enter the land as a curiosity claim or a zoological claim. Attorneys here who are thoroughly familiar with the government land laws say there is no provision for filing such a claim. Mr. Fritzenholz refused to say why he wanted to become the owner of this cavern. It was learned from other sources that it contained many zoological specimens heretofore unknown to the zoological world, as well as skeletons and petrifactions of prehistoric man, which are considered very valuable as they are the first of the kind ever found. Every known species of extinct animals are to be found in the cave, and several that were never heard of before. The skeleton of one of these is awe-inspiring to look upon. Whatever period in the world's history this monster roamed the earth, it is safe to say that mankind did not, and that most of the animals that now exist were unknown at the time. The skeleton of this monster would indicate, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit more just in case you guys can't see it here. The skeleton, I'm right here. The skeleton of this monster would indicate that he resembles very closely the elephant, only it must have been 10 times as large. To give an idea of its size, it is only necessary to give the dimensions of some of the bones. One of the ribs measured 24 feet 9 inches in length, and the others are in proportion to this. Mammoth horses and monster birds. Another skeleton resembles that of a horse, but from its size, it would seem impossible that it could live if constituted as our present horses are. And it is evident that it would be of no use to man at present, as it would be necessary to use a ladder to harness or get on its back. And if there was a tariff on lumber, it would be utterly out of the question to provide stabling for it. There are also many species of birds to be found in the cave, but they are 5 or 6 times larger than the ostrich. The bones of the wing would indicate their width, including the feathers, to be about 23 feet. Again, the bones of the wing would indicate their width, including the feathers, to be about 23 feet. Just wrap your mind around that. Humongous. Not a bird, a dragon. There are also a number of extinct species of reptiles and fishes, which are so large that it is impossible to conceive how they were able to move about. Now, I've done quite a few videos over the year diving into monsters of the past and this kind of idea of that some of these creatures survived these what I'm calling changeover events, these transitory periods between epochs, or what we would call stone ages and iron ages and so on and so forth. That these time shifts often are relative to a cataclysm or several cataclysms, and that often certain animals, creatures, men, giants survive in very low numbers and make themselves present or aware to, again, this kind of new culture or race. And that I've done so many videos on monsters of the past. The one that pops into mind is the Arctic monster, the saurian, the Arctic lizard, the lizard covered in fur that was, 50, 60, 70 feet long and so large that it carried a giant full size caribou in its mouth as it ran up the icy mountainside, and was witnessed by hundreds of people and was seen not only in the Russian side of Siberia, but all the way across in Alaska. And it was so well known of that the Duke of Westminster had heard of this and had made the journey. Again, this is the 1800s when traveling from England to Alaska was a several month journey. And the records of this animal are found in several sources. I've talked about this. You can find this in my Anomalous America Alaska episode. But I cover many, many monsters, relics, living and dead, that there are representations, again, not only in the fossil record of animals beyond what we've been explained or told, and that this kind of concept of what is a dinosaur, what is a dragon, that the term dinosaur is a new term. And again, it falls into this time period in the 1800s when all this stuff is being rediscovered, and they realize, well, we need a new branding for this. Basically, pre I like to call it the vapor canopy age or the annular system age. Again, relating to my videos on was Noah's flood, the fall of the vapor canopy, and that the fall of the vapor canopy to me shows quite evidently that the world, because the megafauna and the floral fossil record strongly shows that the world was covered in tropical vegetation, showing clearly that there was a similar climate all around the globe. This would go back to many, many cultures talking about this time when the sun and the stars was not seen, and that a vaporous canopy enveloped the world we inhabit. And that when this vapor canopy fell due to some kind of event, celestial or otherwise, created what we call Noah's flood. And that these animals were inhabiting the realm as well as man, and great numbers and great sizes, well beyond what we've been uh, told of. Again, correlating many things there. But if there's something throughout my ramblings that sticks out to you, you can go back through my archive and find more material on them. Okay, continuing on here. Sorry. The most interesting discovery is that of the skeleton of a man. As it is said, finding these skeletons with the bones of animals that undoubtedly have become extinct for thousands and thousands of years leads many to believe that they must be skeletons of prehistoric man. Now, again, this is a very special article. In all of my thousands of articles now over the years, I've only maybe found 4 or 5 articles that show this same kind of collective entombment where you have, again, not only man, giant man, but also animals. Very special article here, but it kind of is like more. Uh, more proof of concept, so to say, about some of my overarching ideas with um again, we're not talking thousands of years, which is great, again, because if we fast forward this article to 1994, just 100 years later, that thousands of years is now hundreds of thousands or millions of years. That's what they want us to believe, right? And that these different uh you know cultural layers, Mesozoic, blah 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 blah, represent anywhere from tens of twenties of thousands of years to hundreds of thousands of years. And that even, again, back in this time frame, they're the farthest they're going is thousands of years, but I'm saying it's maybe just a few hundred. And that we have more and more evidence through cultural myth and so on that this Noah's flood, the deluge, this vaporous canopy existed not too far back in our geological age. And but yeah, so let's just keep going. I'm just going to look through chat real quick, doing a better job of including all of you guys in this and whatever you have to say. They don't write newspaper articles like this anymore. This is fantastic. Oh, thank you so much, Lisa. Again, I appreciate your donation. It means a lot. Every other species on this planet has size variations from small to large. So what the hell happened to all other human brethren that were smaller and far larger than us? Yeah, kind of great observance there. Observed natural evolution. I've covered pygmies and giants. There was everything in between. I go with the kind of um Tolkien explanation quite often, as I'm not only a big fan, but I grew up reading his books, but never thought I would be extrapolating his material to a broader opinion of what a more honest, realistic approach to our history was. That there were pygmies and dwarfs, and that all these kind of races of Middle Earth, so to say, were far more realistic than we originally thought. I don't doubt the existence of certain large lizards, just the time span of their existence given. Absolutely. Again, shout out 13th Monkey, one of my good buddies. My first real video was with him, so check that out. Ancient Historia has the Tartarian thing nailed down. His work is really well researched and he's finding new connections all the time. Yeah, he does great video stuff. I've talked a lot about what Tartaria is, in my opinion, and that Tartaria isn't the answer to everything. Again, Tartaria, as we're excluding it or wrapping it in this kind of pretty bow, is again a culture built on another culture. So I'm just talking, I want to go all the way down and peel this onion back as far as it goes. And it goes way past Tartaria or whatever we're labeling Tartaria. Everyone labels it something different. So I'm painting with a broad brush there. But yes. What else? So-called dinosaurs. Sherry, thank you again. Sherry's doing a great job, you guys, of sharing these videos that I'm kind of free-balling out in my archive as I go along here. Tartaria was China, Russia, although old maps show a Tartaria in America that was just a small town. Yeah, Jason, this is, again, that's kind of the partial truality there, because not only was America actually labeled as Tartaria on certain maps, it was also known as India Superior. So these kind of ideas of India Superior, India Inferior, how Tartaria and India, where India even got its name and where it comes from, how it fits into the picture of what Tartaria was. Jesus, this kind of cultural explanation of, this one world religion, so to say, and its disappearance, and it all fits kind of it's interwoven. It can get quite complex. Tartarus was hell in Old Greek. Absolutely. Crypto Alchemist. Hey, brother, good to see you. Um, it's popular now to hate on Tartaria. It's weird. Many truther channels want to say ancient Celts or whatever Europeans were sea people and bless the savages over the world with tech. Yeah. Again, one only need to kind of go to some of my chats with Dr. Longo in Old World, Florida, where we talk about that there was this unified, so to say, again, this is a painted with a broad brush, one world religion, and that maybe this Vapor Canopy Fall was part of this kickoff event that started this quote ice age, and that the Celts or Phoenicians. I have a pretty interesting Phoenician video in the works, describing who the Phoenicians were, their kind of connections with modern masonry. They were considered the first secret brotherhood. How that relates to magnetism and so many things. Admiralty law. It's a deep rabbit hole, so stay tuned for a Phoenician video coming out soon. I live in Nebraska and I want to go check this place out. Yeah, good luck. Unfortunately, a lot of these places become either national parks that get shut down and you're only limited to certain parts of it, or they become private places, or they're bought by mining companies that turn into these giant open pit mines and all this stuff is removed. Ancient Hysteria, yeah, he does good work. Blah, 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 blah. I've read Graham Hancock and did an event with him. And boy, is this video right. Yeah, I grew up reading Graham Hancock. I've been reading him for 15 years. I don't agree with I come to my own conclusions on a lot of things. I think he's a great guy. I hold a lot of his work very dear, but I definitely don't agree with everything he says. Um. Oh, 1111. Thank you so much, man. Question: is there a way for us to search your archives? You can search my Twitter, and I realize that that's incredibly cumbersome for people. Let me just go ahead and do a screen share here real quick and just show people. You go to Twitter, you go to my page, right? You can click the search button. There'll be a magnifying glass. Again, this is on PC, so it's going to look a little different on the phone. But you can go here and you can search whatever the title is, and it'll take you to my posts. Okay, so obviously getting some posts ready for this. I was searching cave, and it'll take things like cave. You can search giants, right? And you look at this, it's going to pop up, endless posts on giants and whatever it is, buried cities, blah 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 blah. So again, that's kind of it is cumbersome. It's not very effective, but that's the whole point of why I'm doing this YouTube channel, is that I can consolidate this kind of shitty version of archiving my work. Because again, I did most of this never thinking I would ever be presenting it to people in video format. So, but yeah, for people that want to search not only my video archive but actual posts, you can follow me on Twitter and search this way. You don't need an account to search my profile, but it doesn't always show everything. What you search on your phone will actually pull up different articles than what you see on the computer. But there's tons to chew on here. Lots of meat on the bone here. So, and again, thank you so much for your $11.11 donations. One of my favorite numbers. David M, thank you for 2 months. Appreciate it. Karimo Kudimeo, as I have been often corrected so many times. Thanks for being here. Hopefully me and him will have a video together here soon. Definitely trying to get that going. Robert Seffer understands the truth better than anyone. The history of the Aryan/white people is establishing civilization, then moving on when it collapses. I like Robert's work. Me and Robert have had dialogue before, and he got so upset with me that he blocked me. So, unfortunately, I don't think that's the best way to go about having a agreeable, open dialogue with somebody who has a lot of work to offer to Robert. I think we could have a lot of amazing conversations, but he seems so against what I do and how I look at things that he blocked me. So, and this has been, I've talked about this many times. People have brought up Robert's work. I still watch his videos. I still like his work. I disagree with him, like I've said, on certain things and agree with him on things, but I always look for the commonalities and not the differences. But yeah, I was very disappointed when he blocked me, and I'm still blocked. So, if you know him, reach out, tell him to unblock me, and we'll see if it ever happens. But I have a feeling it won't. So, yeah. Cheers. Cheers to Robert. I love that I don't need a Twitter account to see your stuff. Thank you, Lucy. Lucy, good to see you. It's been a while. Um, the program. I hope I'm not going to butcher that, but hey, it's good to see you, and thanks for being here. I appreciate that you enjoy my work. Seriously, Ben, but I always thought you meant that Robert that Longo talks to. Holy cow, that says a lot. No, Robert Seffer. Robert Seffer blocked me. I want to say 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now. We had a pretty healthy dialogue for some time, and then I differed on opinions, and it actually had to do with Aryan, his Aryan opinions, and I was showing that the kind of conceptual as well as etymological nods of who the Aryans were was kind of misleading, and that how it was applied was greatly inverted in the 1800s. Cudi Mayo would know this better than anybody. We've talked a lot about this. Um, Religious, cultural, ethnological, skin color, whatever. All that stuff has really been inverted or completely misarranged, and that it's up to people like me and Cudi Mail and others out there to do their due diligence and come to their own conclusions. And uh, you can't believe everything at face value. I don't want anyone to walk away from these videos and think this is 100% truth or whatever. I just want them to be inspired to look into things for themselves or have a different opinion or just at least enjoy what I'm presenting. So yeah, before I get too far off pace here, let's get back to the material. Appreciate all you being here. We broke 200. We're back at down under, so I'm super pumped on that. Again, I posted this live 3 days in a row, and I've had so many people commenting, and then I had to cancel. Everyone's kind of familiar, family first, and I just wasn't able to make it work. So I'm grateful that you're all here and joining me for this one. So, again, recapping where I was before I went on my long rant. The most interesting discovery is that of a skeleton of a man. It is said finding these skeletons with the bones of animals that undoubtedly have become extinct for thousands and thousands of years leads many to believe that they must be skeletons of prehistoric man. Sherry, if you're still in chat, if you'd be so kind as to post my video about, I'm gonna go find it really quick, guys. Pardon me here. Bah, 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 bah. Um, this one, Primitive Giants First Monster. If you would share this one, here's another fantastic example of they actually found fossilized a man fighting with a giant quote buffalo, but this thing was like 4 times the size of your average buffalo. Okay, so again, man and beast walked side by side. There is no hundreds of thousands, millions of years in between these huge, um, you know, conceptions of man when he's introduced to the time frame and an animal or reptile or quote dinosaur dragons disappeared. I also have a video about one of the only dragon, quote, dragons, giant lizards with wings found in the Americas. It was found in Utah in the 1800s. That's also a video you can find in my archive. Um, the skeletons resemble those of the present man very much, and none but an experienced eye could detect the difference. There are many augurs predicting how augurs predicting how and when and for what purpose these animals came together in this cave. There are various and curious opinions, but the most general and perhaps feasible one is that before this country was inundated by the ocean, all these animals congregated in this cave to protect themselves from the water and were drowned. Yes, very telling. This cave being in close proximity to the natural wall, it is supposed by many that they belong to the race that inhabited this land at the time when these walls were built. Okay, keep that in mind. I'll rephrase it again because it's going to get very interesting. The cave being in close proximity to the natural wall, it is supposed by many that they belong to the race that inhabited this land at the time when these walls were built. When these walls were built. From the structure of the walls, it is supposed that they were made to enclose large tracts of land and that they were used by the inhabitants at the time as a place of refuge from the enemy in the time of danger. I've done many videos throughout my time on YouTube discussing these giant walls and what I think they were, and how, again, I keep making the Tolkien references. I relate them to the story of Alexander building the walls around the people of Gog or Magog. Again, stay tuned. I got a video in the works on Magog, the Magogians, who they were, the Magi, King Og. Mag-Og was a title. Mag was like Khan. It meant Magi. Og. So King Og, this biblical king, he has overlays in China, Tartaria, Peru, and in the Americas. Now, this is incredibly interesting because once you take all these different characters and realize, oh, they're maybe just one character, it brings all these timelines much closer together. Mike made something. Ben and I have theorized as well that giant walls present all over the earth may well have been to keep out something else than humans. Yes. Again, check out one of my, it was my first video, my oldest full video on my channel with 13th Monkey. He has mapped our realm to an extent beyond anyone could imagine, on Google Earth. And before I ever had a YouTube channel, me and him have spent hundreds of hours on Google Earth together, and we have found thousands and thousands of miles of walls. Again, kind of going back to what we were postulating, that man and beast, again, man was dealing with beasts that were huge, Godzilla sized monsters, and that these walls were designed to keep not our enemy, our foe, but man was united against a common enemy, and it was monsters, Godzilla type stuff. So again, back to the article. So yes, as I was stating, that they were used. So that we're talking about these giant walls again, okay, and that they were used as a place of refuge from the enemy. And again, this enemy, I believe, was giant monsters. This wall, no doubt, formerly surrounded an ancient city that has become engulfed through volcanic eruption or was inundated by the ocean. 10-foot turtles in the soup. Okay, I've covered and talked about the giant turtles. They've been found in Colorado. Working on episodes for Anomalous America, I was putting some proof of concept together for Anomalous America, Alabama, and they found 10-foot turtles in Alabama. So they found them in Oregon, they found them in Colorado, and they found them in Alabama. 10-foot plus turtles, sea turtles. Some things go to show that it was engulfed by the ocean, as there are to be found in the vicinity of the walls huge turtles which measure 9 feet and 8 inches across, tending to show that this country must have been deluged at or after the time these once beautiful ruins were destroyed. So again, this incredibly titanically large city with walls, as we get further into this episode, I'll show you, were unbelievable in size and scope, were destroyed by this flood. So these animals were alive and well in this time frame, as well as man constructing these unbelievable things. Here was where was found a short time ago, embedded among the remains of these extinct animals and reptiles, a beautiful and perfect petrified man that was exhibited in the East, and which scientific men were unable to say as to what period in the world's history the man existed. Yeah, these odd petrifactions that we keep finding, They can't place them in the geological epoch. It's almost impossible. And again, just the idea of the petrifaction, something I've touched on a lot. Petrified animals, trees, leaves, plants, you name it. That all of these petrifactions lie in layers that make no sense or can't be explained, let alone what these things petrify into. You heard me talking as we started this article, talking about giant horses in Anomalous America, California. I get into some of the horses they found. So, in the 1850s, the gold rush, right, that brought a bunch of these people from the east into these empty areas of the west. Under the term of the gold rush, these kind of repopulating tactics. They used hydraulic mining. In that episode, I go into it, but they wash away whole mountainsides with these huge pressurized hoses. And the things they found buried in these mountainsides would blow your mind. And giant horses was one of them. In fact, they found so many giant horse skeletons in California that they were able to actually find giant horse skeletons that had saddles on their backs. And in one hydraulic mine dig, they found a giant man and a giant horse. And I can't remember the dimensions, but I believe the horse was 40 to 50 feet at the shoulder. Okay. So what size men were saddling horses of that size? There's a lot in our history that we do not know about. Okay, so I just covered that. There are also be found huge petrified logs. This is another series that I'm working on and hope to get, working kind of episode 1 mid to late April. Our petrified past. I'm just going to kind of go into the petrified relics that we've found all over this realm, and logs being a huge marker. I've covered petrified forests in almost every one of my Anomalous America videos, and they're a big hint to what we've lost, our petrified past, so to say. Check out my chat with Stellium7. We talk a lot about our petrified past, and I look forward to doing another video with him too. Yes, so we're talking about petrified logs. There are also be found, piled up in great masses, some of them at least 30 feet in circumference and solid as the rock of ages. Again, I found petrified trees that are over 1,000 feet long, several. And that's just a fraction of the tree. It's not even the whole tree, over 1,000 feet. There are petrified standing forests below our feet. In fact, many coal beds, when they run these lines when they're digging when they're testing the ground. They know there's coal. They dig these shafts to see the density and the depth of coal. So they know, okay, here the coal bed is 50 feet deep. 2 miles up, the coal bed is 300 feet deep. Here's where we're going to start. In these coal beds, they've found petrified lizards, petrified mammals, petrified humans, huge trees. So the coal beds are a great marker and hint to things. And check out Origins of Coal video. I talk a lot about it in that. It was learned today from Chief Yellow Wolf of the Sayu tribe that these discoveries have been long known to them, and that when they die, they go to the happy hunting grounds, that they believe that this will be the land to which their spirits will return, and the game will be provided for them in abundance, and similar to the species found in this wonderful cave, but that they were afraid to tell the whites, as they feared that they would destroy the cave, and then their ancestors would never have the pleasure of examining the skeletons of the kinds of game provided for them by the Great Father when he called them to his happy hunting grounds. Now, before we move on from there, I want to see if I can get this to come up. We're going to go. I have another fantastic article from a similar time frame talking about the Badlands. Here we go. Okay. So here is a thread I made on this. Okay. Talking about this. and I show this example here. This is an old drawing of the Badlands from the 1800s, and the article goes on to describe. Hopefully, you can see this okay, but the explorers literally describe when they first set feet here. These are the explorers here. That this looks like the remains of a giant petrified city, and that they could see the remnants of buildings, staircases, towers, you name it, and that everything had the appearance that it had been melted. So I know that the kind of melted buildings narrative, maybe that's something new to you guys, or it's something that you've thought about before. I know there's a lot of other people on YouTube have presented material on this. It's absolutely something that I invest in. And when you look at petrifactions, not only what high electrical output can do to stone, rock, crystal, so on and so forth, but what the kind of instant petrification potential of high voltage, high amperage, microwaves, radiation, what they can do. It's quite astonishing. You know, people have shown, and there's lots of information about this out there, where you can stick all kinds of things in microwaves and petrify them into all kinds of stuff. People have been able to turn wood into opal instantly. Um, Power line workers have had limbs petrified during an electrical accident, or there's all kinds of examples of this. But this is a different article here. We're going to get into that one next. Here we go. I wanted to read this really quick. Okay. So this is the notes that go along with that image that I just showed you. Okay. So here's the image again, and here's the notes. The surrounding country is prairie, and the Badlands occupy a valley about 100 miles long by 30 broad, which seems to have sunk away from the surface of the earth. We publish herewith an engraving, the image I showed, for which we are indebted to the Christian Weekly, which well represents the general aspect of this valley and the remarkable formation which characterize it. The rocks are fragments of what were once continuous strata, but which are now broken into tower like columns. And Dr. A.C. Peel remarks, but little exercise of the imagination to fancy oneself in the streets of an ancient city whose inhabitants left behind them spires, buttresses, shafts as monuments of their labor and their genius. Dr. R.M.D. Gurridin, a French traveler, gives the following account of a visit to the Badlands. Now, in the Badlands today, a huge portion of the Badlands is closed off, government owned. Accompanying one of the geologists, I ascended a hill and enjoyed one of the most wonderful sights. At the extremity of an immense plain, rose tinted by the reflection of the setting sun, there appeared to us an immense city in ruins, a city surrounded by walls and bastions, filled with palaces, gigantic domes, and monuments of the most striking and fantastic architecture. At intervals upon a soil white as snow rose crumbling castles of brick red color and pyramids with sharp summits, capped with shapeless masses, which seemed to tremble in the wind. In the center of this chaos stood a gigantic scepter like column, descending into the valley and passing between two columns of antediluvian architecture. We discover a vast amphitheater surrounded by crumbling and indented hills of rich yellow color. Pardon me. Where was I? Hills of rich yellow color and a confused mass of miniature mountains of red and yellow clay, thrown without order on a soil so hard that the horse's feet make no impression on it. This desert, says Dr. Peel, is destitute of vegetation, and the scantily supply of water is strongly alkaline. coating the rocks with a white crust where it evaporates. So, kind of a perfect representation. Again, the cave is in the same area. Um, and for people that have seen um, the Badlands, again, there are good videos out there where people have explored it on foot. Um, you know, beautiful, beautiful place, but a lot of very standout examples, like I mentioned in Utah, and Colorado, where they describe a mountain peak that, although looks artificial and worn by nature, when they actually excavated it, found it to be a giant building. And there are many examples of this in Arizona, Utah, and Colorado. And as I just stated, with these separate three sources who all agree that the Badlands show signs of a giant metropolis that was hit by some catastrophic event, not just a flood, but perhaps a conflagration event or something along those lines. Before we get into more caves, I wanted to just lightly touch on two perspectives from um, Native Americans, Aborigines, whatever you want to call them, and their perspectives on subterranean realms and their old world habitations. And then we'll move into a few more examples of caves, one more from the Dakotas, and kind of wrap it up with um, an overarching idea of um, caves, the symbolical alchemical representation of the cave, and so on and so forth. So this article is titled "The Mandans." It's from an Indiana newspaper, 1833. We're just going to zoom in here. And I'm just going to check through chat real quick. Old World Micmac, good to see you. Native Americans, he knows what's up. Lucy Rose, good to see. Oh, yeah. Speaking of caves, real quick, every single state has at least one, if not several, including Florida. They definitely did not teach us that growing up. Oh, it's because there's the things they found in caves are unbelievable. Any 432. What's so funny about me seeing this? Who just said that? I missed it already. The drop. JRB, any 432, the drip fans. I just sent him a DM. Okay. We were supposed to get together for an episode. Haven't heard back. I messaged him again today, hoping that we can get something going. So, those of you out there that are familiar with 432, Drop Nation, fantastic channel, tons of overlap with my material and his. We've had a little bit of back and forth over the years, nothing crazy. Hoping to get together and do an episode with him. So, if you're familiar with him and his work, let him know you want us to team up, please, and thank you. Love the guy. Fantastic researcher. Lone Star Viz, good to see you. Plasma in conjunction with flooding. 100%. 100%. I think a plasma event was responsible for the fall of the vapor canopy. That's my opinion. In a nutshell. Obviously, that's painting with a broad brush. Badland rhinos would be dope. Man, they find all kinds of crazy shit. We'll get into fossils of the Badlands in my Anomalous America episodes as we go up the Missouri River into the Badlands areas. Uh, Mandatory Musta was Prester John. Yeah. Prester John, we'll get into him. Absolutely. John the Red, King of Kings. He goes, man of many names. Absolutely. King David, blah, blah, blah. John Levi, yeah. I've never reached out to John, but I'd love to talk to him. Obviously uh my Anomalous America Utah episode would be enough for him to there's a lot of meat there on the bones, and hopefully we can get together one day and have a fantastic chat. So if anyone wants that to happen, you make sure to reach out to John and let him know. I don't think I'm on his radar, but we'll see. Hometown Vegas, Hoover Dam, same thing, reverse engineered for dam, refurbished. Christian Roosevelt and the sundial ancient on display, huge bronze wing angels, winged and discolored green. Somewhere in time. First of all, thanks for being here. I appreciate your comment. Yeah, I have a video on the Hoover Dam or Boulder Dam before it was rebranded. I talk about the celestial representation of what that was and the winged giants six-fingered and six toes. Me and Dr. Longo, Old World, Florida, have a live video in the works where we dive more into Arizona and Hoover Dam and six-finger, six-toed giants and more. So stay tuned for that. John Levi is a G, and I don't care what anybody says. Yeah, you know, I don't have a bad thing to say about the guy. I also got Badlands and Scablands mixed up. Oh yeah, both of them. Scablands, Washington. I talk about the Scablands. I have referenced a book I've read quite a few times about the Scablands of Washington. Show that Noah's flood took place here in North America. It's a fabulous book. I've been to the Scablands. When I kick off my archivist travels series where I kind of go out and do boots on the ground stuff, Scablands is going to be top 3, definitely. And if that's something you're interested in, please make sure to leave me a comment. Let me know, because my goal is to within a year be doing more traveling and exploring for you guys and creating a video series based on that. But you know, time is money and travel is money and all of these things. And so I just have to make sure it's something that you guys are interested in and the support is there. So let me know. Oh, what else am I missing here? I'm sure I'm missing a lot of comments, so I apologize. Turtle Island, petrified turtle from some event. Yeah, yeah. The idea that we reside on a turtle, you know, the lore that exists in many cultures that the realm we inhabit is the shell of a turtle. You know, the celestial nods, the moon calendar that is the turtle shell, as above, so below. I mean, the turtle shell is a perfect example, right? That the map is laid out in front of us. What else? What else? What else? What else? Crazy stuff. Robert, again, appreciate you as always. Enjoyed the stream as per usual. Thank you. Thank you guys. David M. All the answers are within. Stop looking to personalities on YouTube for answers. People create content for money. That's the motive. Okay. Well, David, you're absolutely entitled to your opinion, and I've seen you in a lot of my videos. So, you know, people can come to their own conclusions. You know, I definitely earn money from doing this work, but I did it for a decade with and didn't earn a cent. And I'm grateful for the support. And if you don't want to support me, you don't have to. There's plenty for free, and if you do, that's fantastic. I appreciate you all, no matter what. Whether you support me with your eyes and ears or support me with money, I don't. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just grateful for all of it. Appreciate you all very much. 432 Hertz. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Shout out. Japan news hit 10 hours later. 10-foot waves. They named a Opens Day. Had to have been catastrophic. I'll have to look into that. For the sake of getting back to the thing here, Ben, I was talking with an intuitive and I asked what the Hoover Dam was covering up, and they said something, and also nefarious little people. Interesting. Wow. Love it. Interested, and I'll leave a comment too. Engagement. Okay. Let's oh, gotcha. JRB. Okay. Gotcha, David. Yeah, no problem. Latent lexicon. Boots on the ground in Illinois would be excellent. Love to see if you could uncover any indications of old ancient canal systems. Yeah, I talk about Illinois and the canal works. The entire realm is covered in canals. Every single state has canals, walls, because water's everything. And maintaining, redirecting, and controlling water is key. And every culture that survived needed to do it. So it is everywhere, latent lexicon. And yes, I would love to go to Illinois sometime. I've been to Chicago more than once, but I've never explored any other part of the state. So I definitely would love to do that. My goal and dream is to explore the whole realm in person, not just from a computer. I am a channel. Okay, I don't know who we're still arguing with, Dave. I hope we're not. Let's just stay on topic here. I appreciate you, David. I know you've been a long time listener, so I'm not too worried. If you're arguing with somebody, I'm sorry that that's happening. Just found your channel a couple of days ago. Great stuff. Thank you so much for being here, Lizards. Let's get back to the material. So again, I'm trying to make a point of engaging with you guys more often because I wouldn't have this channel or the support without you. And I get so caught up with getting through as much material in a time frame as I can. And I think that's kind of losing the point. You guys are what's important, and having dialogue about the material. So again, here we go. This is 1833, the Mandans. Some 1,500 miles up the river Missouri above the Memones will be found the Mandans. Now, remember, I've posted a lot about the Mandans. They were also called the Mandanes. They were called the Danes or the Danites or the Mandanites. And they were an intermingled culture, interracial, whatever term you want to use. But there were light skinned, blonde, blue eyed, quote, Indians, and there were darker skinned, brown eyed, quote, Indians. And when they spoke to these Mandanes, the first explorers to find them and write about them to be translated to English were French explorers, and they said that they came here on boat and ventured up the Mississippi from the Gulf of Mexico and found a culture similar to theirs, and that's where they resided. So the Mandanes, the Mandanites, are interesting on a million fronts, but this is just a little look into their kind of cultural explanation of their origins. These people, as well as their neighbors below them, have some very peculiar religious notions. Mr. Catlin, again, he wrote a lot of amazing stuff. And Mayo, who I don't think's in here anymore, but has done some great videos on them. He's talked about the Mandanes as well. Who visited them last summer, has given very interesting accounts of their religious ceremonies, customs, and traditions. Of the latter, he has given one specimen, which contains more of the wonderful than any of the vision of the seer Joseph Smith, and we believe quite as worthy of credence. According to their traditions, they were the first people in the world, and they originally lived inside the earth. They say that a vine had grown from one of their cornfields to a very great height through a hole in the earth, and one of their young men climbed up it until he came out of the top of the earth where the Mandan village now stands. Now, one just need to look at Jack and the Beanstalk and some of these cultural stories of these giant beanstalks leading to mythical lands somewhere in the sky where giants reside, right? Very interesting. The Mandans talk about giants inhabiting the regions that when they came to the surface as well. He looked around and admired the beautiful prairies and country about him, and saw many buffaloes, killed one and found it good to eat. And he returned and related what he had seen. When a number of them went and witnessed the same things, amongst the throng who was endeavoring to climb up was a very large fat woman who was advised not to go up, but whose curiosity led her to attempt it, notwithstanding, as soon as she had got an opportunity. When she had got part of the way up, the vine broke under her weight and let her down. She was disgraced for being the cause of a great calamity which could never be averted, for no one could ascend, nor could those descend who had gone up. They commenced the Mandan village where it now stands, and the remainder of them are living underground to this day. Yeah, and this isn't just one story like this. There are many, and I'm just going to share two with you here. But culturally, the idea of coming from the underground is everywhere. Old World Florida, good to see you. Appreciate you. Someone was talking about in the chat long ago about Hoover Dam, and I had mentioned that hopefully we'll get together and do that episode on Hoover Dam and kind of break down Arizona, correlating Arizona with the culture of not only Florida but Italy, Pineal County, as above, so below, and these kind of races of six-fingered, six toes, and the ritual that is Hoover Dam. The Navajos and their strange traditions, the creation and deluge, historical vestiges of ancient tribes, and curious traditions of native races. This is from 1887. The Herald, a short time since, published some of the traditions of the Zuni tribe of Arizona. Now remember, Arizona used to be called Arizona, in their quaint and incredible statements. Between the Zuni and the Moquis is the tribe of the Navajos, and the following is their tradition of the origin of man. It states that in the beginning all men lived in the center of the earth. One day, a Navajo accidentally touched the top of the cave and heard a hollow sound, which awakened his curiosity and tempted his tribe to dig through the ground. After digging some distance, they found they were nearing the top and sent up a raccoon as a pioneer. He failed to make any progress on coming down on Earth. An angleworm was put in his stead. He bore a hole through the earth crust into the air, and while stopping to rest, discovered four great white swans at the four cardinal points of the compass, each with an arrow under his wing. The swan from the north first rushed upon him, and thrusting his arrow through his body, retired. The other three inferior swans performed a similar service when the worm retired from the field through the hole in the ground. The worm and the arrows that transfixed him made the hole so large that the raccoon went to work and enlarged it so that he could go through, and the Navajos followed the raccoon. When they arrived on the surface of the earth, there was neither sun, moon, nor stars, and no firmament discernible. Now, this is what I was talking about earlier when I said that many of these cultures where they have a verbal origin story that goes back far enough, they will describe a time frame where there was no sun, moon, and stars. Okay, and this is the vapor canopy, the annular system that exists on all continents. Many old cultures have this same story of a time before the deluge, and that you find kind of these ideas of the purple haze or this steamy world, right? The vaporous canopy idea relating to this too. So, um, a council of war and expediency was called, and all the wisest of the tribe set to work to manufacture the sun, moon, and stars. The sun was first made and placed upon a rock, where the priest puffed smoke in his face, which caused him to be red and wrathy, and rose above the reach of these new dwellers on the earth, but out of sympathy gave them sunshine half the time, till the whole of Arizona, New Mexico, Sonora, Colorado, and northern Texas became filled with these people, and the ruins of their works remain to this day. Now, again, you're dealing with a culture that is 100% um, right brained. Okay. They don't, language as we think of it, phonetics, their ideas and conceptualizations of the world were completely different. It was all ideographic, pictographic. It was all imaginary. And so you really have to look at this so metaphorical, and it's very layered. But I just wanted to share those two when we talk about caves, inner earth, cultures rising from the caves and coming up, so on and so forth. Excuse me. We're going to get into a few more caves. I'm going to look through the comments here real quick. Everyone's in here tonight. Show, yeah. Yeah. Good to see you, Longo. I'm sure I've missed a lot of comments, but love you guys and I appreciate your support. But yeah, so I saw you respond. Key can't wait. Yeah, that the breakdown into Boulder Dam, Hoover Dam, the symbology of the star signs, the star map, the giant statues, um, some of the crazy shit they found buried in Arizona. Yeah, that'll be a great episode. Why it's called what they called, the area is known what it is, and again, going with the whole what lies beneath uh, concept. Rice great to swim, fly, walk. There's no way I can get through all of these comments, so hopefully if anything stands out. Couple of Antiochs, several places called Bethany, several Jordans, so many Lebanons. I live in Bethany, Lucy Rose. Yeah, I live in Bethany. Technically, that's the little town I live in now. But yeah, okay. So, what are we at? We're at hour 15. Okay, choosing these wisely. Okay, I didn't mean to do that. Arkansas Cave. Let's go. Okay, well, let's read this one since we talked about the Mandans really quick. Okay, so the Indians are Jews. Okay, and this is an article from 1835. The ark must have landed on the Chimborazo or the Allegheny mountain range. Okay, we're going to read this really quick, just kind of again, because we're talking about Catlin. He was one of the first people to visit the Mandans. He not only talked about their origin stories, but he related many amazing correlations between their religious practices and what we would call the Jews. The Indians were Jews. Mr. Catlin, of whose portfolio on Indian portraits we have frequently spoken, is, we perceive, lecturing at Mobile. We trust he will soon make his way to the northern cities. Indians are no rarities, but rather a nuisance to the people about there. To us, they are becoming subjects of historical interest and therefore magnified in importance. If the following, related by Mr. Catlin, as we find it in the Mobile Commercial Register, be a true narrative, it is certainly a most extraordinary and unexpected confirmation of the truths of the Bible. The ark must therefore have landed on Chimborazo or the Alleghenies, and the Indian tribes that once populated this country must have been the descendants of Abraham. The origin of the religious ceremonies of the Mandans is both novel and interesting. It is probable that no white man was present at its celebration before Mr. C, and the gentlemen who accompanied him and their tradition, connected with it, of a stranger coming to them from the west, who had saved himself from a great flood and had found land on the mountain in his canoe, has probably been first made known to the white man at that visit. The season of these ceremonies is the binding of the willow, and the reason assigned is that the bird flew back with a sprig of willow. This is again Noah letting out, I can't remember what it was. First something else, and then a dove, and it returned with let them know that land was close. On being questioned what bird, their reply was the mourning dove. The whole tradition upon which these ceremonies are founded is a matter of speculation for the curious, though it means the origin of these wild people may perhaps be traced. Um, here's another one that we're going to talk a little bit about, just because again, Catlin talks about it and it connects again quite nicely with what we were discussing here earlier. Prince Madoc in his colony. Now, funny correlation here. Prince Madoc is my great uncle, and his brother Hyrule, who was a lord or a nobleman in the UK, who stayed there in Britain when Madoc came to the Americas. In the last number of The Investigator, conducted by J.F. Polk, Esquire of Washington City, in an article from the pen of Pishy Thompson, Esquire, comprising much rare and curious historical information and confirmation of a long existing tradition that Prince Madoc of Wales made a voyage and brought settlers to the Western world in the 12th century, and that the descendants of these Welsh colonists have been found, if they are not now to be found, among our Indian tribes. Now, if Old World Micmac is still in the channel, maybe he can make some drops about Anunnaki, Wabanaki, Abenaki, and how the Welsh language has a lot of interesting affinities with not only the Basque, but the Micmac as well. The Welsh language is incredible, and its correlations around the world it pops up everywhere, and it's very interesting. Mr. Catlin conjectures that the polite and friendly Mandans, of whom we have been told not one survives, were of Welsh origin, many of them having complexions as light as the half breeds. Among the women, particularly, many there are whose skins are almost white, with the most pleasing symmetry and proportion of figure, with hazel, with gray, and with mildness and sweetness of expression, and excessively modesty of demeanor, rendering them extremely pleasing and beautiful. Mr. Thompson introduces a letter published in the Gentleman's Magazine in 1740 from Mr. Morgan Jones, who resided for a time in Virginia and afterwards sailed to South Carolina, whence, with 5 companions being in want of provisions, they traveled through the wilderness to Tuscarora County. Here he found an Indian Shasham of the Doegs, who spoke Welsh and was civilly treated for 4 months, during which he preached to the tribe 3 times a week in the Welsh language. Captain Lord commanded that port, who heard old people observe that Mandan Indians visited them who conversed intelligibly with the Welsh soldiers in the British Army. In 1810, soon after the publication by Mr. Southey's poem Madoc, a workman in London stated to a friend of Mr. Thompson that in his youth he had traveled among the Indians in the northwestern part of America, and that on one occasion he and his companions had fallen in with a light complexion tribe of Indians, whom one of the party, a Welshman, carried on conversation with the Welsh language. There is then strong reason to believe in the story of Prince Madoc and his colony, and that to a recent period traces of their existence were to be found among some of our Indian tribes. Now that's again a whole nother rabbit hole for another episode. We could talk. We'll do a whole episode on kind of the idea of what is a Native American. These Aboriginals were many tribes. They all didn't get along. They all had different religions. They had different languages, ceremonies, customs, origins, everything. And many of them had been warring on this territory for hundreds and hundreds of years. Back to the caves. Again, I just kind of wanted to touch on that because connecting the old world with the new, the idea of the biblical stories is something that I make a lot of correlations with. That again, when we think of Bible narrative and lore, is it possible that America is the old world and that this was the setting for these biblical stories? It certainly seems possible. There are a lot of evidences to suggest that. You come to your own conclusion, of course. Again, choosing wisely. I won't have time to cover all these. I wanted to do this one. Okay, here we are back in the Dakota territories. Okay, guys. 1884. I have news of the greatest importance to convey to you. A great way to start an article, right? Which you are at liberty to use as you see fit. On Saturday morning, the 26th, I, in the company with Ned Haggard and M.B. Doyle of Mandan, Thomas William and Fred Williams of Freeport, Illinois, started up the Knife River Valley on a prospecting tour some 20 miles west of Stanton. We halted for refreshments at a place known as the Indian Crossing of the Knife, and said to have been the famous battleground and dividing line between the Sioux and the Ree Confederates. Evidence of many a bloody encounter between the hostile Indians were still visible. Arrowheads, spearheads, war clubs, knives of which were fairly preserved, were found scattered here and there. These and other evidences of this being historic ground led to a general hunt for relics. After dinner, Ned Haggard and myself started up the river to hunt for relics and examine a high bluff about a mile above the crossing. We found nothing of importance until we arrived at the bluff, which is thickly covered with brush, with a few cedars holding on to a doubtful lease of life in the storm's beaten crevices. Hager was prowling along the foot of the bluff, closely scanning every opening for evidences of coal, when he discovered a huge opening by accident, as the mouth of the cave was naturally concealed with brush and wild grapevines. I will here give Mr. Hager's description of the inside of the cave as first revealed to him with horror, And to tell the truth, he was frightened when he rushed out and shouted, "McGrath, I have found hell." I was at his side in a moment. His face was white unto snow, and his eyes showed the proof of having seen some unearthly vision. "McGrath," said he, "there is a graveyard inside." I lit a match to look around after getting inside, when to my horror I saw skulls, bones, and then a skeleton apparently looking at me. I dropped the match and made a jump for daylight. I was in favor of a further examination at once, but Mr. Hager said not by a mill site and commenced shouting for the other boys who joined us in a few minutes. The startling nature of the discovery was explained when it was resolved to go inside and forcefully armed and explore the hole by aid of fires. Captain Doyle, being an old soldier and not being afraid of death or the devil, took the lead with a double barreled shotgun, while the balance followed with dry wood and a newspaper burning brightly. Mr. Hager brought up the rear with a revolver in each hand, ready to fight or retreat. In a few minutes, a bright fire was burning when objects became visible. No wonder Mr. Hager retreated in haste. Doyle's gun was shaking in his hand, while his face showed a determination to stand his ground if his legs were weak. To tell the truth, there were none in the party who felt like laughing. The skeleton that so alarmed Mr. Haggard was a hideous looking god or idol made of wood and evidently carved out of cedar. One arm was extended upward, apparently appealing to the sun. The other was extended across the breast, holding a large wooden knife. The eye holes are filled with peculiar stones that sparkled in the light. This heathen, Indian, or historic idol or god is unknown to Indian history in North America. It much resembles Hindu or Chinese idols, such as we find in illustrated histories of these countries. We found 4 skeletons that had evidently been encased or covered in a manner similar to Egyptian mummies. We found nothing with the bones to indicate nationality, although it is evident that the mode of burial is not of the American Indian. 2 well preserved spearheads, evidently of copper, were found, resembling those of ancient Rome. A sort of dirk or small cutlass was found among a quantity of decayed matter. A inner cave was full of bones, skeletons, implements in copper, stone mills for grinding, such as were used in ancient Egypt and parts of Asia. Fine specimens of pottery were also found. 2 chambers led out of the second cave, which were so utterly black and dark that our best efforts failed to explore them. It is my candid opinion that a thorough examination of this ancient receptacle, cave, or whatever it may be, will unearth abundant evidence of a prehistoric race of people that have no connection with the North American Indian. It is believed that the Rees, Gros Ventres, and Mandan Indians had their origin on this continent from Norwegian and Welsh explorers who first discovered Labrador in the year 1002. Under charge of Leif, son of Eric the Red of Iceland, ancient records sustain this theory. Now, hopefully, one day me and Longo can do a deep dive into Eric the Red. We can talk about what Iceland was pre 1800s. That was Genghis Khan and Genghis Khan. Did they have a home in Iceland? How crazy is that? And that sounds ridiculous, but again, the idea again of the Finns, the Phoenicians, again, Norwegian, Welsh, Finns, Phoenicians, Mandans, Mandanes, Danites, these ancient kind of biblical tribes, again, blending these timelines together. We brought what relics with us to Stanton that we could carry and have them carefully stored away. The mouth of the cave was carefully concealed, and as soon as we can get some gentleman who is versed on the subject of ancient relics, we shall return to the cave fully prepared to explore and recover every single article of value stored in this wonderful place. Mr. Hager is of the opinion that specimens of copper work already found antedate the Christian era. Of course they do. And I guarantee you it's Michigan copper, the same copper they find from northern Canada all the way into Peru and deep, deep South America. Giving again, connecting the idea of this ancient maritime race and the trade from the Americas was on a worldwide scale. Remember, they found Michigan copper on every continent: Africa, Asia, Europe, North and South America. Michigan copper is unlike any found anywhere else in the world, and it's been found on every continent. At first, we all determined not to divulge the secret of the cave until a thorough exploration had been made, but a further conference decided to give the facts to the public after protecting our rights to discovery. Yeah, and I've talked about this article in a previous interview, and you never hear about it again. Never hear about it again. It's gone, and there was just too much money to be made, or there was too many clues to our past. Getting, I've talked endlessly about who were the Romans. Well, Rome as we know it is based on Etruria, the Etruscans. It goes back a little before then, but that's kind of the branding that we can go with. And how come we find the Etruscans in America? Or who were the Etruscans is a more fair question. I have a whole series on the Etruscans if you want to dive into that more. But, quote, Roman artifacts are found all over. I talk a lot about it in my Anomalous America Arizona episode. Out of place artifacts, you know, that I could have a whole YouTube channel just on out of place artifacts and would never see the end of it. But yeah, I just wanted to cover that one because it's in the same area. And what do we have time for? Let's look through chat real quick. Old World Micmac, Atlantean Light Language, Copper Scrolls. Yeah, absolutely. This comes from talking about Joseph Smith again and the Golden Tablets and the Micmac correlations with the Golden Tablets and what is Micmac and Egyptian and blah 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 blah. That also is a rabbit hole. Lots of copper mining in the old world. Yeah, they had a way of hardening, tempering, so to say, copper that we still can't mimic today. Copper scrolls. Oh yeah, copper and gold scrolls are found all over the Americas, all over the world, really. Druids, Russians. Let's just go see, make sure I didn't try Greenland. Oh yeah, lots of stuff under the ice of Greenland for sure. Phoenicians created all alphabets and languages. Yes and no. Phonetics is a style of language that you can correlate to that. Yes. And again, stay tuned for my Phoenician um the the Phoenicians as a secret society video. I'm going to discern the difference between a Phoenician being a cultural or racial labeling, but that it was actually a conglomerate of seafarers like Danites. And that to be a Phoenician, you were a part of this secret society. And that being a captain and a Phoenician, you were part of the secret order of Q. Um, and when you study the Hebrew language, the sacredness of the letter Q, Kaf. When you study alchemy, the letter Q, quintessence. It's a very very potent symbol that is universal across languages. So stay tuned for that. We'll get into that more. Who are the Phoenicians, or what are the Phoenicians? The secret society, the maritime race. Harry Hubbard. Hey. So yeah, I agree very much with Harry Hubbard. I too agree that Alexander, the story of Alexander and his giant walls against the 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 tribes of Magog, that realm, right, that you see on old maps that people often think of Eastern Russia, Eastern Siberia being the land of Magog. I've suggested that story takes place here, and like Harry Hubbard has said, the Roman relics all along the Mississippi Valley, all over North America, but especially the Mississippi Valley, support quite strongly that idea that perhaps Alexander was warring here in the Americas, and the giant walls he built around these Magogians were actually these walls that I've been showing throughout Mississippi, Texas, Mexico, all over. Interesting to touch on. If you guys want to look into that more, just search Harry Hubbard on YouTube. His channel has lots of incredibly interesting stuff. Just kind of rolling through comments really quick. Water does come up from the underground too. Absolutely. Floods actually predominantly were talked about, and the majority of the floodwaters came from underneath. Equinox is tomorrow. Yeah, important time of year. My late father's birthday is coming up, and it was always right around the equinox. Maritime law. We'll get into maritime law when we talk about the Phoenicians and this article I'll be reading. And we're going to get into talking a little bit more about Gotland, how Gotland correlates really nicely with the Finns. We're going to talk about Dr. Longo's video about hell on Earth, the Bach saga, how this Ice Age maritime culture, the Finnish, the Finns, the Phoenicians, correlating that with Gotland, and then also bringing that over, which Gotland was called the home of the maritime law, showing that that was actually like the main Ice Age dock between north, the north, and the Gulf of Mexico, and that the trade, those were like your hubs, right? For the most part, the Mediterranean was closed off. Yeah, so look for me to touch on maritime law, talk about why the Phoenicians, the secret society, the laws that we know of today, when we talk about the language that describes the laws we that they kind of set up this the false you, so to say, when we talk about birth canals and commerce and currency and how all these things relate to ocean travel and maritime law. That'll be something I talk about in my Phoenician episodes that should be out within the next week. So stay tuned for that. Do 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 do. Thank you, Roman Ronan. If you guys are appreciating this knowledge, click that like button. Appreciate it. You know, it does go a long way. It helps. It does. It does. Denizen, Dan is another language, means sea. Yeah, absolutely. The Danites. I talk about the Danites a lot. I correlate the Danites with Joseph Smith, how that relates to the Mormons. What was a Mormon? A Mormon was an Ethiopian. Now, how can Mormonism, Ethiopians, Abyssinians, Phoenicians, how are all these things constantly overlapping in not only language but history, what that means for like the idea of Solomon symbolically but literally, as well as this Prester John character, King David, King of Kings, Queen of Sheba, how she works into all of this. Yeah, I mean it's a rabbit hole for sure. And when you dive into the Danites, it gets really interesting. Love Harry Hubbard and that one cat, Paul. I'm not sure who that is, but yes, I love Harry Hubbard as well. Um, it's why Cat Williams has the medallion. Ooh, what did I miss there? What did I miss there? Fill me in on the medallion. I've heard him discuss it, Micmac. I've heard him discuss it, but I can't remember. Cat Williams says a lot of great stuff. He's out there, but you gotta look. You gotta look for the out there characters. You don't want to stay right there and comfortable. You want to touch on the fringe, and he does that well. Ben, hey, good to see you again. Benny Riley, good to see you as well. The people doing the bricks are terraforming the bricks. What do you mean by the bricks? I imagine that Iceland was once much larger. I mean, Iceland was just a commerce capital. Um, but yeah, we'll get into Iceland more. Gotland, aka Fatherland. Yes, David, absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to talk about Gotland a lot, the home of admiralty law, and why that's important to the Phoenician Empire. Altland East, right? The land of ice, or the land without ice. How this connects with Finland, Helsinki, the Roman takeover. When Etruria fell, the Finns were worried because they knew they'd be coming north. And who is they? Jason, that was a great episode of The Cave Diver. I must have missed where we were talking about that. Scotland, Nova Scotia, and Old Scotia. Yes, Queen Scotia. Yes. Scotland. Excellent, Micmac. I love it. Great correlation there. Etymology is your friend, guys. Mormons. I've been watching Seth, which is Joseph Smith's I don't know, 8 grandson. Andreas introduced me to him. Interesting, huh? I'll have to check that out. Was the Queen of the Jinn? Queen of Sheba? Is that what we're talking about? Not sure. Ben, whatever happened to Victor? Is he still around? I love the dig into Q Starford Tartaria. Oh, thank you. Wow. Lulu 101. Thank you. Shout out to Victor and Radio Tartary. Victor's the OG when it comes to Tartaria. You know, I wouldn't be doing this channel or sharing this information if it wasn't for Victor. Victor's alive and well. He walked away from content creation and is just living his life. He's super happy. Um, I hope one day I can get him on the channel again and just do a quick little recap. Um, he was reposting Radio Tartary, and maybe I'll reach out to him and see if he'd be okay with me re-uploading them because he stopped. But I do know there's hard copies of Radio Tartary, and yeah, Victor's doing great. For those of you that remember me and Victor Radio Tartary, that was over 5 years ago now, 6 years ago. Great stuff. Um, yeah, I mean, when Victor took a lot of shit when the QAnon stuff was blowing up, and you know, we were just looking at it from a idea of how is this QAnon stuff coming around as the archives are getting digitized and this Tartaria stuff was first coming onto the scene, and I was correlating the Q narrative, what this meant symbolically, metaphorically. You know, I spent a lot of my time dabbling in the imaginatory and the kind of subconscious realms of these things that happen in these social realms, social media, geopolitical worlds. And yeah, so that was a deep dive. And when we talk about this Phoenician, when I do this Phoenician episode, you'll see the correlations between Q and why these sacred fraternal orders started with this original, the first, as this article says, the first secret society was the Order of Q, and it was a Phoenician secret society. You weren't even known as a Phoenician unless you had reached this top tier where you were given the order or the status or the branding or the moniker Q. At that moment, you were taught the secrets of magnetism, geometry, and you were taught the use of the compass. You were then granted a ship. You became a captain. We can talk about the maritime law, how the birth certificate, how on a law standpoint, most of us are labeled as um, a ship without a captain, lost at sea, the symbology of that, how that relates to this maritime law. We can trace this all back to the fall of this kind of phonetic empire. Getting off topic there, but yeah, definitely stay tuned. Thanks again. Would love to see you and Joseph P. Farrell. Please think it over. I think you guys. I love Joseph P. Farrell. Um, yeah, I mean, let him know why Sheba a Jinn, Queen of Sheba. Yeah, I mean, Queen of Sheba, the Solomon, the Ring of Solomon, Lord of the Rings, one ring to rule them all, the ring that controlled the Jinn. How this relates to Genghis Khan? How did he get a hold of the ring? How did Kublai Khan have the ring? what is the ring, the symbolic nature of this, controlling portals, Janus symbolism. Man, that's another deep rabbit hole that I hope to dive into. Pretty sure Q is ChatGPT's first prank. Well, again, Fire Farmer, I'm speaking of the symbolical nature of Q, what it represented long before QAnon was ever a thing, and what that was really tapping on subconsciously. Cool chat, telepathy, Sailor, Matthew. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the sailor, ship, canal, water, currency, all that stuff, that root in our language is incredibly deep. Okay, so with the limited time we have left, I want to choose these next articles carefully. Nope. Prehistoric people are the most wonderful kind. That's a good one. Mammoth Cave. Okay. This one's short and it kind of sums up what I've been saying. This article is from 1854 and it's about Mammoth Cave. The Mammoth Cave is an antiquity of the world before the flood. Now, just kind of thinking about how we started this episode, discussing the world before the deluge, what the Badlands, all these different people exploring the Badlands for the first time, all kept saying the same thing. This looks like a melted, ruined, flooded city. And what they were finding below ground all around the Badlands, in the caves, in the soil, all kinds of stuff. A city of giants, which an earthquake swallowed, and which a chance roof of rocks has protected from being effaced by the deluge, and by the wear of the elements for subsequent ages, is one of the fancies which its strange phenomenon force upon the mind. This kind of is a summary of all the cave articles, in a way, a synopsis of how I kind of look at the underground. And by the wear of the elements for subsequent ages is one of the fancies which its strange phenomenon force upon the mind. All is so architectural. It is not a vast underground cavity, raw or dirty, but a succession of halls, domes, and corridors, streets, avenues, and arches, all underground, but all telling of the design and proportion of a majestic, primeval metropolis. Now, remember, I talk about in my Anomalous America Kentucky episode, which again, if you haven't seen it, check it out. Every episode is amazing, but the Kentucky one, where I get into the Mammoth Cave and I read just about every article I can, they found at least 3,000 mummies in Mammoth Cave. 3,000 mummies in Mammoth Cave. All over 6 feet tall, many over 8 feet tall. It is not a cave, but a city in ruins, a city from which sun, moon, and stars have been taken away, whose day of judgment has come and passed, and over which a new world has been created and grown old. I'm going to read that again. It is not a cave, but a city in ruins, a city from which sun, moon, and stars have been taken away, whose day of judgment has come and passed, and over which a new world has been created and grown old. Coney777, thank you, and let's go on tour in the USA. Oh, thank you for the 20. Appreciate it so very much. Yeah, I mean, that's my goal. I've kind of made that announcement. I set my goal the first year of YouTube and surpassed it and more. And I'm going to up the ante and set an even bigger goal. And that my goal by this time next year is to be traveling and visiting as many places as I can afford time and money. And yeah, that's kind of the dream and the end game for the channel. And thank you so much for your donation. It means so much to me and my family. By what admirable laws of unknown architecture those mammoth roofs and ceilings are upheld is every traveler's wandering question. In some shape or other, I heard each of my companions express this. No modern builder could throw up such high vaulted arches and so unaccountably sustain them, and all else in keeping. The cornices and columns, aisles and galleries are gigantically proportionate and as mysteriously upheld. Street after street, mile after mile, seem to have left only half in ruins, and here and there is an effect as if the basements and lower stores were encumbered with fragments and rubbish, leaving you to walk on a level with the capitals and floors once high above the pavement. Basically, what they're saying is that this whole chamber has been filled by the flood, and that the flood destroyed it, and that this was a metropolis, a primeval metropolis shaped by the hands of man, a city in ruins. It might be described as a mammoth Herculaneum, first sepulchered with overtopping mountains, but swept and choked afterwards by the waters of the deluge that found their way to its dark streets and their subsiding. What scenery and machinery this will be for the poets of the West by and by. The Parnassus is a house ready furnished. And yeah, later on, into the late 1800s, when bat guano becomes a thing, they start digging down through this bat guano and they find, more and more and more and more. And they find that there's actually a floor and that it's been covered by some places 3 feet, other places 20 feet, other places so deep they can't even reach the bottom. And they find all kinds of animals, man, mummies, machinery, weaponry, incredible things. And also, I did a video on they found a tunnel in Kentucky and it went down 1,200 feet. And at the bottom of that 1,200 feet, they found a frozen ocean, uh, full of animal life, blind whales, blind sharks, all kinds of credible stuff. So again, how many generations have come and gone, and what really lies below us is a mystery. But these few remnant articles give us a pretty good hint into our past. So, running out of time here, I'm going to share one more article, and I want it to kind of correlate here. Also, in my Anomalous America, Arkansas episode, I talk about the largest cave discovered in America. Heaven on and in earth, well said, McMack. Thank you. Sham, that was well said. I want to read this. Been canceled. Pleasure. Thanks for being here. Shambahalantis. Absolutely. Well said. Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if Ben meant to say mummies buried and not burned. No, burned. Yeah. One of the articles where I talk about the highest concentration of mummies found was they were burning the mummies. They were using the mummies as fuel to loosen the saltpeter and other minerals in the cave for wartime. The Confederates needed saltpeter for bombs and many other things, and that's the justification, is the burning of these mummies to create fires to loosen the rock and minerals found in these caves. Cockroaches love bat guano and eat it. Most guano is cockroach shit. Interesting. Yeah, well, we get into guano in Nevada too, and we talk about the Lovelock Cave system and what they found under there. Pretty incredible stuff. What else? Pay the boatman. Yep, Moonchild. They used to eat mummies too. I've heard that as well. Yes. Is this the one I wanted to do? Lewis County. You know what? Let's Moorish. We're gonna do this one. This is how we're gonna wrap up the episode, you guys. I talk about this in my Colorado episode, and this will just kind of give you a little bit of an idea of what I think was going on, in this time frame. We were traveling underground in large subterranean river systems, and that these habitations were connected underground, just like we hear about today with these deep underground bases being connected by highways where people say they can drive from the East Coast to the West Coast and never see the light of day. I think these are old world tunneling systems, and these habitations and all these kind of deep underground military bases, these dumbs of the world, are old world, and we've just re-inhabited them and taken them over, cleared them out. The reported discovery of a large cave. No, that's not the one I wanted. So in this one, they talk about they explore a huge cave and they come to a huge underground ocean, and at this the side of this ocean, they find two petrified ships, basically showing that people were traveling on these underground oceans by ship. And to kind of double down on that, we're going to go backwards and we're going to talk about a Colorado yarn, an article from 1892. And we're going to summarize it because I got about 5 minutes left here. I want to thank all of you again. Caves are portals. Absolutely. Again, check out my video with Black Sheep Researcher, What the Flock TV, where we talk about Janus, portals, and do we live in a cave? Is the world we inhabit today a cave? I'm going to kind of summarize this so I can look back through your chat and see if there's any questions. If you have questions, start posting them now, or things you want me to maybe just comment on. And when I get through this article, we'll spend a little time doing that. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Over 250. Super happy. Amazing. Thank you so much. The cave at first seemed empty. This is a cave in Colorado, okay, guys? But as their eyes gradually became accustomed to the deep gloom, the men saw in the further extremity a huge black object, which, not without some trepidation, they approached. As they neared it, to their unbounded amazement, they made out the lines of some sort of sailing craft. It was, as nearly as they could judge, about 60 feet long by some 30 feet wide, and lay tilted forward at an angle of about 15 degrees over a rough pile of stone. The body of the craft was built of short lengths of some dark and very porous wood, resembling our black walnut, if it could be imagined, with the grain pulled apart like a sponge or a piece of bread and made perfectly square. So some incredibly advanced form of shipbuilding, so advanced they couldn't even describe it, in a type of wood that they couldn't even really actually tell you what it was. Were turned abruptly up like the toe of a peaked Moorish slipper. Both ends of the ship, it was evidently intended for sailing either way, were turned abruptly like the toe of a peaked Moorish slipper. Now, again, in the 1800s, they're describing this as a Moorish slipper, but that's also a Phoenician boat, a Viking boat. They're the same. Very interesting. This describes a boat that they found in the cave in Oregon that I discussed in my Oregon episode. The planking was abruptly double riveted on with nails of extremely hard copper. Again, there's that tempered copper, and only slightly rust eaten, and with the heads cut or filed in an octagonal shape. While along the upper edge of the ship, 11 large rings of the same metal, evidently for securing of the rigging, were counted. At the bottom edges of the craft and running its entire length were two keels, some 4.5 feet deep and 6 inches thick, hung on metallic hinges. Again, the construction of this boat is beyond these people's understanding. And at the ends were fastened rough copper rods extending upward and bent over so as to attach the two mast risings from the upper edges. If the cross of an inverted V be conceived to represent the deck lines, the two stems are at about the angle and position of the masts. These were upward of 20 feet long, and as evident that a sail was at one time stretched across, some ragged remnants of what appeared to be cording were found clinging to the inner edges. The ends of the masts were secured in pivots, and it was evident that in tacking, one could be moved forward and the other back, thus bringing the sail at an angle with the body of the ship. an idea which it might not be bad for our modern navigators to imitate. Again, so advanced ideas that they're not in use. He's saying that modern people could use this idea. This is believed also explains the copper rods which moved the keels so as to reciprocate the position of the masts. While the whole ship was intact, the wood crumbled like dust beneath the finger touch, and fearful of trap falls, the two prospectors did not venture to explore the interior. Lying on the ground nearby, however, was discovered a gold instrument resembling a rude, a gold instrument bearing a rude resemblance to the sextant of present day and possibly used to calculate their longitude. No trace of any writing was found save on one end of the ship. We're about midway on the bow of the ship, enclosed in a metal ring, were 26 copper characters riveted to the wood and bearing much resemblance to the Chinese hieroglyphics of the present day. Now, remember, in the 1800s, Chinese, as we know, was kind of fudged with and rewritten. And when you conceptualize the resemblance between, again, old world Micmacs in here, so he knows, when you look at Chinese, block Hebrew, and even, uh, Hebrew and Phoenician, they're so eerily similar. And remember, they originally described this as a Moorish slipper. So Chinese, Moorish, Phoenician ship, Chinese hieroglyphics. No human remains of any sort were found, although it is possible that a search in the hold will reveal something of this sort. Without pushing their investigation further, the two miners, lost in wonderment, retraced their steps to the upper air, leaving the ghastly ship once more in the gloom and silence. If you want the whole article, check out Anomalous America, Colorado. It's so funny because I got a message today from a follower on Instagram sending me this interview with this person talking about ships found underground in Oregon. And the person who put the video together was talking about, was Goonies based on a true story? And I even touched on this in my Anomalous America Oregon episode, where I talk about ships being found underground all over the realm: Oregon, Washington, Colorado, Missouri, Arkansas, everywhere. So, wrap your mind around it. What were we doing down there? This is so out of place. The construction methods, the hieroglyphics, all of it doesn't make any sense. Definitely raises your eyebrow. But yeah, let's roll through chat here real quick. Again, thank you everybody for joining me tonight. Appreciate you all so much. All the donations means a lot. Keeping this going for me, supporting my family is huge. All right, we're going to work up from the bottom. So the ship was sold, it fell apart when touched. Yes, this is like many organic materials that survive in an arid place. Like if they're not buried or entombed or wrapped or embalmed, they degrade. And you find the same thing with bodies that are found in the ground, organic life, bones, that they wither away. Unless they're petrified or they were sealed hermetically or like in a bog, they deteriorate quite rapidly. So, yes, to answer that. Subterranean schooners. Yeah. Lulu, love the topic in your show. Keep breaking their narratives until the windows of the firmament open again. Lulu, thank you so much for your donation. I appreciate your comments and your kindness and your appreciation. Again, the donations really do mean so much to me. They keep me doing this. Let's leave it there. Love you guys. Thank you so much. Okay, let's keep working up here. See, another thing about animals going extinct is that the climate alarmists muddy all of that. Yeah. Yeah. Let's make things humid again. Make the world human again. Make America humid again. Make America tropical again. We could go all day with that idea. Paul Cook is okay. Yeah. Well, we're gonna keep this positive. You know, yeah. I don't want to go down the Paul Cook rabbit hole. But yeah, what did they do with them? Oh yeah, good question. They found ships just like this in New York City recently. They find ships underground all the time, not always in caverns in condition like this, of course not, but buried under a floods or mud floods or a deluge. It's it's quite an interesting thing. I talk a lot about the symbology of the ship. We'll get into this again when we talk about the Phoenician episode and we get into Gotland and Admiralty law. But there's a reason that it's called Noah's Ark. Now, again, if we want to get symbolical and metaphorical, Noah's Ark was really your mind, right? And same thing with the kind of pyramid, the fire, the mid fire. Um, there's so much symbolical as above, so below, hermetical, alchemical symbolism hidden in these stories and these myths that really just relate to the story of you as a human. And the ship, cathedrals being built like a ship, the idea of Noah's Ark, the ark being your mind and your body and your soul, taking this journey into material reality and blah, 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 blah. It's a whole rabbit hole for another episode. What else we got? What else we got? Um, okay. They are describing arcs. There were many arcs full of survivors from the last reset. I agree. Many arcs. Again, I talk about what the Native Americans in Alaska called Noah's Ark. There was a petrified ship on a mountain that they showed to one of the first, quote, white men in Alaska. And it was a 1,200-foot long ship in Alaska. And the natives called it Noah's Ark. They were familiar with the Bible story and said that it was the Ark. I agree there were many arcs. Arcs could have been pyramids. Check out that series. Uh, Okay, I'm just reading through comments here. I'm good. Great new information as well as recaps and confirmations. Good stuff all around. Thank you, Jason. Thanks for being here. Uh, Question, Ben. When can we finally reschedule? Well, send me a DM. We'll figure it out for sure. So, are all researchers chairs? That must be a comment to somebody else. I got banned from another truther channel trying to chill out, just interested in learning info from the other side, so to speak. Yeah. Well, welcome. I appreciate you being here. As long as you respect other people and we're not, um, as long as you respect one another, I don't care what you say about my research. As long as it's respectful, you're entitled to your opinion, and I'm certainly not here to convince anybody of anything. People here in Iceland ate leather books when the literary world forgot about us warring. Interesting. Uh, Eucrates, Eucarotes. I'm going to say that wrong. Procarotes. I'm saying that wrong. Moonchild is a wonderful band. All right, we'll hop down to the bottom, see if I missed anything. I would have welcomed a collab with Archaics in the past, but at this stage, I would have to say hard pass. He's shared my material. We've never talked. He's been considerate to my material, but we don't have any dialogue, and I'll leave it there. I don't have anything to say bad about anybody. I don't know him at all. The things I have heard are a little concerning, to be upfront, and anyone that's familiar with, his background, he's been open about it. It's concerning, especially as a parent, but whatever. To each their own. He has quite a following, and to be honest, a lot of his hardcore followers are quite rude. And but that's it's an unfortunate side effect, I suppose. I get that with Archaics and Longo, unfortunately. Pity, really, and it's about information and learning. Yeah, they don't get along, and that is what it is. That's how he feels, and I love Longo. I have his back, and he's allowed to feel however he wants to feel. That doesn't mean that's how I feel. Member for 4 months. Thank you. Much love to all. The information here is priceless. Thank you. Appreciate it. You got fired on your day off? Stealing boxes. Oh my gosh. I saw that video you, Craig. It looked like you. What you doing with all them boxes? You building a clubhouse? Yep, and the elites are building bunkers, arcs, and tunneling into underground world old cities, hence Elon Musk's boring company. Very well said. I've talked a lot about this. Check out my short video called Deep Underground Bases of the Old World, where I talk about DUMBs or old world habitations. Absolutely. This channel is fantastic. Oh, I'm glad you think so. Uh, Again, shout out to Sherry. Um, she's always holding me down. Appreciate you so much, Sherry. You do a huge job, and I just couldn't couldn't ask for a better moderator. Appreciate you. Everyone has a piece of the puzzle, and you hold many. People don't like losing their ball. Just open dialogue. Don't judge him for his past. Lots of good people on our cakes, and no person represents all. 100%. Well said, Freeman. Thank you. Well said. Like I said, if he reached out to me, I wouldn't be rude or deny some dialogue. Of course, I would love that, but it hasn't happened, and that's okay. I'm saving up $844 to become a dungeon reset master. I'm not sure what that means, but I like the sound of it. All right, bud. Thank you, everybody. I think I'm going to wrap it up there. We're just over 2 hours. Originally, just planning on doing 90 minutes, but I could keep going. I didn't even read all the few articles I shared there. Again, for people interested who follow me on Twitter, you can simply search using the magnifying glass on my archive and type in caves, and you'll find dozens of articles if you want to dive deeper. Don't forget to check out my YouTube archive where I have probably at least 10 episodes covering caves, cave systems, underground abodes, giants, everything underground. Make sure to check out Anomalous America. Um, yeah, like I said, stay tuned. Big changes in April coming. Before the April change, I plan on releasing that Phoenician episode. Hopefully, me and Dr. Longo can get together, Old World Florida, and work on that. Hoover Dam, burying the ancient inhabitants of America, who they were, what they were, the symbolical nature of that, and much, much more. Love you guys. Thank you so much. You know, over 250. I'm so grateful, and all the donations. You know, to be totally honest, they take care of me and my family, and um, pretty soon I'll be working towards investing more of that into production and equipment for more stuff for this channel. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, everybody take care of each other, respect each other, love each other. And I look forward to doing this again very soon. Love you guys. Have a absolutely wonderful night.